Hey guys, it's me, EODGamer here, and in this video, we're going to be talking about the best limited 5-star Lightcones according to the community, you guys, what you have to say, so we can bounce ideas around, and I'll be also sharing my comments as we read through the comments in some engaging video like this one. This is of course filmed and recorded 3 days after this video has been published. If you want to hear like my thoughts specifically, check this video out, but here we have 288 comments from you guys already, and let's go ahead and answer one by one. We'll sort by the top comments, so those of you who agree with like the top comments, and always like those that you really resonate with you so that we can also get a more representative answer. First question or first comment by Baklaja. One thing you forgot to mention about Ranmei's Lightcone is skill point recovery. It saves you so many times on many occasions. I think this is a great point. We mentioned that Ranmei's Lightcone is like super good because of the break effect stat that you get, but I think another thing that is really good about her is you also get an additional skill point on top of like the energy and stuff like that. One of the things why I didn't like go in depth on Ranmei's Lightcone, I think one thing is because Memory of the Past is like a very strong Lightcone which gives a lot of energy, but definitely the skill point efficiency of Ranmei's Lightcone is very strong. So any of you who are considering Ranmei's Lightcone in future, this is something that Baklaja has considered for us, commented, and 113 of you agree to it as well. Very nice comment. Thank you so much for the comment too. Julio Flores, I don't know whether I'm pronouncing it right. You agree with Kafka's Lightcone being one of the best Nihility Lightcone in the game, but he or she believes that Jiao Qiu's Lightcone is also very close in terms of value as well as versatility. The only Lightcone you consider pulling without owning the character as well. So he goes on to elaborate, the Lightcone itself gives 60% effect hit rate, which is 20% more than what other Lightcones give, which is like the Eyes of Prey is one of them, the one with like Sampo's picture on it. It applies a debuff that also increases damage taken, so it seems quite generalistic. At the moment, only Kafka cannot make use of Jiao Qiu's Lightcone, so his argument is a lot of other characters make use of it. Pella, Silverwolf prefer running tutorial over Jiao Qiu's Lightcone. Black Swan with Jiao Qiu's Lightcone allows her to become a better support in not DOT teams, like Akirion based teams with Black Swan as like a supportive Black Swan, maybe with like some other stuff as well. But all of the 4 DOT characters he believes can run Jiao Qiu Lightcone, allowing them not to run an effect hit rate chest or any other effect hit rate stat. This is a very good comment that Julio Flores as well as 76 other people are talking about. Now here's the thing, I want to share with you my comment of why Jiao Qiu's Lightcone, in my opinion at least, is not the best, and this is the point of this video. So we debate about it, we bounce ideas back and forth, and ultimately you can choose whichever one you prefer if you want to pull for his Lightcone on a rerun. One thing for sure, 60% higher, or like 60% effect hit rate, which is 20% higher more than other Lightcones, is not exactly like a wow, massive game-breaking 20%, right? It's not as if that 20% is converted to damage percent increase or something like that, unlike like Ranmei's Lightcone. This one just helps you hit ratios and increases like his multipliers a little bit more. The effect hit rate is nice, but it is still stats. You're paying a lot more money just for 20% more effect hit rate that you can get otherwise for a much cheaper alternative. The one that really is the one that you're paying the money for is the debuff that increases damage taken by the enemy. So the argument here is like there are many other Lightcones that can offer it, right? The problem with spending like $200 for a limited Lightcone is if you can find a cheaper alternative that maybe it's not as good, but as long as you can find a cheaper alternative out there, you save that $200. I will argue that it's not like it's a luxury, it's no longer a necessity, and it isn't like one of the top few. And the reason why I say that, one of the key things is resolution shines or pearls of sweat is a huge factor. Is the one that shreds enemy's defense, the one Lucas face on it, that increases the amount of damage the enemy take already, and it is defense shredding, so it works in DOT teams, it works in crit teams as well. That is a very solid alternative. The argument for effect hit rate chest and effect hit rate substats is really more of a, this Nihility character, is it going to be a damage dealer? Most of the characters that want to use Jiao Qiu's Lightcone, because if your primary focus is increasing the amount of damage the enemy takes, then you are mainly building a supportive kind of unit for another main damage dealer. Unless you're looking for like a DPS Jiao Qiu, DPS Silverwolf, or DPS of the other guys, I can argue that maybe Jiao Qiu's Lightcone is possibly very good, but for the most part, if you're looking for a support, a 4-star alternative like Resolution Shines or Pearls of Sweat is already so efficient. I think at S1 it gives you like 12% defense shredding already, which is very cheap. Save $200. That's one of the reasons why I don't rank Jiao Qiu's Lightcone higher. 20% more stats. I don't think it's like a massive game breaker since no one actually converts it to like team buffing damage increase. The day we have someone that does that for effect hit rate, possibly so. But thank you again so much for your comment, Julio Flores. I hope it answers, like, clarifies a bit of the Jiao Qiu's Lightcone. It's really an alternative thing when you're talking about luxury Next up, we have TP Rep S over here, who is mentioning Earthly Escapade. This is Sparkle's signature light cone, the one that gives crit damage to the wearer and crit rate and crit damage to the rest of the team if you can have skill points uptime. So he's mentioning here that generally 100% uptime if you have Sparkle, but it's very difficult to put it on another unit as well. Great analysis on light cones, gave you comes good at sight. Thank you again so much for the compliment, really appreciate it. But I think you may have a really good point here, TP Rep S, because Sparkle's light cone is very strong. You can transfer a lot of the buff to the rest of the team, but it's very niche. Only Sparkle can like get the maximum value out of it. The other character that can transfer like the crit damage stat that you give the wearer probably is Bronya, but you don't get to buff the team with that massive crit rate, crit damage buff that you're looking for because she's not going to generate a lot of skill points for your team. You want to actually use her skill, Bronya's skill, more often, so she's not going to be like a funneler to get you that mass uptime on Sparkle's signature light cone. So that's like a huge point. But other than that, it's still a very strong light cone if it's situated specifically on Sparkle, but versatility not that high as well. Thank you again so much for your comment and compliment as well. Really appreciate the nice comment too. Next up, we have Sippin' Hot Coca here, who is having 46 people upvote this as well. So it's quite a massive amount. When you look at light cones, you don't see them the same as getting Eidolons for a character for these reasons. One, firstly, they have a better PD rate of 75 over 25 out of 50. This is a great point. Like, the chances of you getting a signature limited light cone is actually slightly higher, so more people might actually consider getting it because you will get it at a much lower price. I think the hard pity is like 80, right? Yeah. He also mentioned it here. He or she also mentioned it here. Reaching hard pity is slightly easier because it's 80 instead of 90 pools. So your soft pity, which is the point that you are starting, your odds are like kind of increased in game. There's always this like superstition, or is it a fact? Like 70 is more or less when it starts to like ramp up towards the end, and 80 is like guarantee kind of thing. I mostly get mine like 80 for characters, so I don't think it's like superstition. I think it's an actual fact. But hard pity 80 instead of 90, this is a huge thing because it's a lot cheaper. On general, on average, you are likely going to get it much cheaper as well. So maybe instead of spending like $200 for a character, like maybe 120 pools on average, if you lose one, win one, go to hard pity, it's about 120 pools. So this one might be a lot less. Maybe it's only like 80, maybe like close to 100, like 100-ish, so it's a lot cheaper than getting a limited character. So it's not exactly one-to-one. I definitely agree with your first 2 points, but for a lot of convenience sake, a lot of people just like compare E1, S1 because it's much easier to like compare rather than like looking at the exact percentage efficiency, because it's quite of a mouthful to explain every time like someone asks, why are you comparing like E1, S1 with a discount factor in it also? Part 3 here, whereas an Eidolon will strengthen a character, a good 5-star light cone can also strengthen other characters, easier for vertical investment. This is a solid point by Sippin' Hot Cocoa. I totally agree with you. This is a very strong point. One of the biggest things about light cones have over Eidolons in general, and something that is very important to remember, is even if you bench a character in future, that character gets power crap, a good light cone will take you miles ahead, like way longer. And that is why we emphasize a lot in this video, especially also the importance of versatility, because when you are buying a handbag, a luxury handbag, you want it to be able to be used on anyone. Your friends can carry it, your parents can carry it, your son can carry it, your daughter can carry it, whatever not. You want it to be super versatile rather than like something only you can carry only to a wedding. Outside of weddings, you don't ever use it at all. That is similar case to a very specific niche light cone. So very strong point by Sipping Hot Cocoa. That's something we need to remember when we are pulling signature light cones. If you're gonna spend 100 plus $200, you want something that is very generalistic and something important because it can be used on other characters. Part D here, fourth one here, he or she mentions, depending on the light cone lineup, you are able to S5 more strong 4-star light cones to strengthen your entire account. This is okay-ish, I guess. It's not too bad because a lot of the limited gacha light cones are quite strong, but and it does matter, but it's the same case for like character banners. If you have a solid character cast, it's more or less the same. So this is not unique to characters per se, but I do hear your point. A good banner usually is like very beneficial a lot for many other characters too. I think this is like pretty solid. Thank you again so much for your comment. You also again like comment on Topaz S1 over E1, Topaz and Nambi, why he prefers one or the other. This is a great point comparing like S1 vs E1. We actually have a video on the channel already. If you're interested, you can see right over here in one of the videos that are recommended by YouTube. We have this E1 versus S1 for every signature, for every like character in the game. If you're interested in more details, you can check that video out. But that's beyond the point of this video, right? We just want to specifically talk about light cones that are great value. Next up, we have Iton1490. Love our videos. Appreciate how honest and blunt we are. Thank you again so much. Sometimes it feels like content creators are trying to sell you whatever, but I really appreciate it. Thank you again so much for your comment. It's nice comments like this that is one of the reasons why I'm continuing doing YouTube. It's not the best job on earth, but I really appreciate the community's comments and like engaging you guys here too. If you guys want to engage more live as well, because this is a time delay, right? Like 1 day delay, 2 days delay, depending on how long I actually get to gather all these comments. Check us out on Twitch as well. We live stream or Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays at around the evening time in Singapore plus 8 GMT, 8 to 11 PM. But check us out there if you're interested. If you are just bored, you want someone in the background making some funny noises. I'm not just joking, but that will be me. Next up, we have Big Boy Andrew 05. The only time I pull for Lightcones if you really like the character and you want them to be as strong as possible. So far, you only put Argentine's Lightcone and Yuli's Lightcone for Clara. This is a very good perspective that is, I think, shifting things into the understanding more of the community base. Only time you pull for Lightcones is when you like the character. So you don't care whether the Lightcone is versatile, you don't care about whether is good for a lot of other characters, best in slot, or whether there are alternatives available. This, I think, is a very emotionally and driven approach of playing the game, which is not wrong, by the way. Everyone has different ways of playing the game. If you really like Argentine, you want to max him up, you like Yunli a lot, you want to max her out, or Clara in this case. There's no issue with that, but I just want to let you know that by going down the efficient road of pulling efficient Lightcones, you are able to have more resources saved up to keep doing this method for more characters. So if you really like a character, you realize, shit, I don't have resources. But if you have been following the efficiency approach, you will have a lot left over. You'll realize you have a lot of access to keep doing this. So it's also important for people who just want to focus on their favorite character to also learn about overall utility, because you get more savings, right? The more savings means the more you can deploy for whatever you really want to do, rather than being forced to do something that you don't want. That's why we do this kind of content as well. But again, thank you so much for sharing your perspective, Big Boy Andrew, as well as the 127 people. So it is quite a popular opinion to pulling for whatever you want. But that's my thoughts anyway. So next up, we have Fifth Horseman TV. Runway has additional value because of the skill points recovery, a pretty big energy recovery. Yep, this is exactly right. Same as the first question here. So it's very, very shared across most of them. The first guy above also commented it. Again, thank you for your comments. I really appreciate it. Doesn't mean that it's a duplicated comment. It's not important. In fact, it doubles down on whatever people are saying. So it makes it seem, and you guys watching this video know that the Runway Lightcone is quite important for skill point recovery. 2 people with quite a big amount of upvotes have mentioned it already. Next up, Cliff Puncher 357. The aggro manipulation on Yunli's Lightcone is very useful for Clara and Blade, as well as Yunli herself. All 3 of them can use the buffs to some degree. This is a great point. I think we didn't really expand too much on the Yunli's Lightcone too much. So I'm really glad that we have the community here leaving their comments to actually support the video, whatever we talked about the video, to expand more on certain characters as well. Yunli's Lightcone, I think, is really strong. It draws aggro for the characters as well, and is really great for characters like Clara, like Blade. No other Lightcone in the game has the ability to draw aggro outside of preservation Lightcones. So it does change somewhat. It's very, very interesting. You are able to benefit counter-attacking characters very well. But one of the main problems with Yunli's signature Lightcone, and I'll be really honest with you, is counter is currently not super popular in the game right now. You don't have a massive benefit for using counter characters. That in itself makes Yunli's Lightcone a little bit more niche than compared to something that can be slapped on any popular DPS Archons like Cone and blah blah blah. That is my main consideration when I'm thinking about Yunli's Lightcone. It is a great Lightcone, but it has to follow meta, and for that reason, the analogy I'll use is generally for people who go to tuxedo weddings, or you go for meetings and stuff. The vast majority of us maybe don't go to it every single day. We're not high flyer kind of royalty kind of thing, but it's still a good Lightcone. Maybe one day when Hoyoverse wants to have tuxedo occasions every single day, then probably it will be a lot better, because it is a very, very solid black suit to wear if I were to use the energy tool. But yeah, thank you so much for your comment, Cliff Puncture. Really appreciate you expanding on that. Knee Go Lover. Next up is Aventurine's Lightcone is useful for its own personal damage, and it provides a debuff for Akirion and Ratio teams. Can't wait to pull. This is also a solid one. We have 17 upvotes here for this person. How the YouTube allocates it, I have no idea. Some of the more popular ones are slightly below, but YouTube's magic, I won't question it. But I think it's solid. I think Aventurine's Lightcone is really good, but the problem is, for most of the 5-star sustains, they don't really need their signature to survive. If you are just looking for a debuff it provides to Akirion and Ratio teams, you have the 4-star Trend of Universal Market, the one with like topaz in the background that applies a debuff on enemy when you are attacked, that applies a debuff already. So you might as well just go with a cheaper alternative, save your own $200. Unless you are like really trying to maximize the damage of Aventurine, then I guess you want to do it. But if you're just looking for like something to sustain the rest of your team, I just feel that min-maxing a defensive character's damage is a little bit of an overkill. I'd rather put that $200 to work on maybe an E2 Akirion, S1 on like Akirion, and like maybe E2 S1 Facial or something like that, or E1 Robin in fact. So there are much better alternatives also, instead of going for a defensive Lightcone just for a little bit more damage for something that a 4-star already offers. But that's just my perspective. I totally respect that. If you really like Aventurine, no issues with that. Kafka's Lightcone is a whole ass character. This is absolutely right. She offers way too much value. Just a spoiler for any of you who haven't like seen this video over here, this one, Kafka's Lightcone is one of my top picks because it offers you tons of value. We elaborate more there. If you're wondering like why do 210 people also agree with this comment, check the video out. I think you'll find it tons of interesting value. Or if you're like debating what Lightcones you want to get in future, highly recommend you check it out. And let's take us a few more questions. We have Trent Ono here, member of the channel by 10 months. Thank you so much for supporting us as a member of the channel for 10 months as well, Trent Ono. Really appreciate it. It helps the channel keep going as well. If any of you don't mind just spending $1 a month, you please like just join as a member as well. It really will help us out the channel like survive a while longer. You know, we don't put like many spam videos of like unrelated topics, drama topics and stuff. So we do really count on the community support to survive as well. But I really appreciate any of you watching this video as well. You don't necessarily have to support financially, of course. I'm confused about your stance on Topaz Lightcone. Her LC, her Lightcone and E1 are about similar in value. Her Lightcone gives a huge 18% crit rate, follow-up damage, and as well as 24% crit damage when someone has the same state for entire team. Or Lightcone is pretty insane. On top of that, this counts as a debuff. We make sure good when paired Doctor ratio. E1 is great as well, but that is when you say people are going to invest in Topaz, go E1 S1. A lot of questions that you say. So this is a great point brought up by like Trent Ono, right? A comparison between like E1 S1, which we covered more in our other video already. This, of course, the video on our E1 S1 was put out after like this video over here. So a lot of the answers were already like clarified there. But for the sake of you guys watching and you're also curious on the Topaz E1 and S1, here's the thing, right? Lightcones are unlike Eidolons. Eidolons add value to the characters directly and increase their value straight away, or Eidolons in general, but Lightcones are increase in value versus the other alternatives that we have in the game. If you are looking for crit rate, your free-to-play Cruising the Stealthy gives you 16 already. So if you're comparing the second best alternative, which is a total free-to-play one, you're paying 2% extra crit rate, some follow-up damage increase, and a 24% crit damage buff for your entire team. That being said, so 2% and some follow-up damage bonus is very individualistic. Are you playing Topaz as a buffer for someone else, or are you playing Topaz for a damage dealer come buffer, a bit of both? So you either get one thing super excelling with, or like a bit of a half-half in that sense, because the follow-up attack buffing that she does, the crit damage that she buffs from her E1 is very massive. It's like 50% if I remember the numbers off the top of my head. So 50% versus slightly less, like 24%, which is like less than half, and individual damage. I guess the choice is up to you. For me personally, if I'm playing Topaz and Nambi with the characters in the game, she probably isn't going to be the one that contributes a majority of the damage of the team. She's going to do some damage, but I would just rather prefer like slap her on with a much more affordable gear, since this signature Lightcone is not as flexible. Some of us have mentioned it above. It's not as flexible as the other Lightcones in the game as well. By doing this, you actually get great value for a support E1 first, giving a lot of damage to like Fei Xiao if you have her in your team, doing like massive amounts of damage because you are specifically a support E1, and then you just slap on like a relatively affordable Lightcone. Here's the thing, some of you might say, oh, but EOD, Topaz Lightcone is super good at support. No other Hunt Lightcone does supporting as well. It's the most unique Lightcone in the Hunt category. There is one exception to that. The Battle Pass Lightcone, which has Hanya's face on it, it does cost $10, $15, so free to play. I'm so sorry about that. But for $10 to $15, which is arguably a lot cheaper than a signature Lightcone, you get a lot of crit rate as well, and at the same time, you have the ability to remove enemies' buffs. Is ridiculously strong, because then you don't even need characters, for example, like Pella to strip buffs, Luota to remove buffs and stuff. Your Hunt character Topaz pretty much does it for your entire team, so you can like remove enemy buff, whether they have like some kind of attack buff, defense buff on them. Topaz becomes a support as well. So in that sense, you get a versatile debuff shredding, plus you also get a massive amount of crit damage. So utility plus ability to support. And that's my opinions. There are many options available. And the fact that there are so many alternatives that we can even think about tells you that maybe the Lightcone is not as important as it sounds compared to a lot of the others which are way higher up on the list. But I appreciate your comment. No one is right, I'm not right. Perhaps you guys have a much better point as well, Topaz mains and stuff like that. But I appreciate as well this comment, I really appreciate it as well. Thank you so much for the 10 months as well supporting the channel, really appreciate it. Next up, of course, we have another comment here. Let's go with the one with like 42 upvotes, okay? Like, even though YouTube is like saying this is like 6 upvotes, I don't know why it's like higher. So let's go with like United, it's 5459. One thing nice, considering on whether putting for Lightcone or Eidolons, is that you have a chance. Yeah, this is exactly right. So this is like probably what someone above already has mentioned. So thank you again. Really appreciate it. And let's just end off with this Stripe Jeff over here. A side note, new players can benefit more from the video as a Lightcone analysis is very good. For players who have been playing for a while, time to feel some regret or pride depending on what Lightcones. I don't think so. I don't think it's a case. Doesn't mean the Lightcone that you pull is not great for you right now. Of course, along the way as you played the game, and this is I think a great way to like end off this video, right? Those Lightcones that any of you put in the past, it could be that back then they were very valuable because there wasn't many alternatives. Let me give you an example. Blade's Lightcone, Jingliu's Lightcone, Imbibitor Lune's Lightcone. Back then, destruction characters didn't have too many other alternatives. Even till today, 4 of the Aeons are probably the only free-to-play alternative. Even the gacha ones are not as good in terms of destruction category. So they were smart. They tried to like force us all to buy that limited Lightcones early on in the destruction category. And a lot of us did back in then. But doesn't mean they are bad decisions. It's just because the game state has changed drastically. We now have a longer runway to like look back at too. So it's easier to see like hindsight 2020, right? Look back at all the history and then, oh, maybe I should have done this, maybe I should have done that. But then don't feel bad about it. I made mistakes myself as we talked about in this video also. But most importantly is we take away from this video is what is the direction to move forward, what is the important things to look out for. If you're interested in the other Lightcones that are mentioned that the community didn't mention as well because it's already mentioned in this video, check it out. I think you'll find a lot of value. And again, like and subscribe if you appreciate this kind of format. Leave a comment as well. Thank you again so much for watching. Check out these other videos right here that I think you may find interesting as well, and see you in the next video.